You know, usually when we talk about digital habits, the conversation goes straight to doom scrolling, like the endless, exhausting news cycle.
Right, the terrible state of the world.
Yeah, exactly. But I want you to picture this for a second. It is a random Tuesday evening, right? You are lying on your couch, just thumbing through your feed, and suddenly you are hit with this incredibly specific, highly curated aesthetic of suffering.
Oh, the algorithm knows exactly what it's doing there.
It really does. Like, you scroll past a soft filtered confessional video where someone is, talking softly about their attachment wounds. And then the very next thing is a TikTok diagnosing complex PTSD, which is, a severe psychological condition. But the video is set to these really chill, lo-fi hip-hop beats.
It is so incredibly jarring when you really step back and look at it.
It's wild. And then, if you jump over to Pinterest, you hit a board literally titled Healing Journey. And it is just endless moody photos of someone staring wistfully out a rain-streaked window.
It is honestly a very peculiar taxonomy of pain we've developed. Looking at those feeds, it doesn't actually read like a cry for help. It functions much more like a cry for recognition.
And I have to admit, I look at this stuff and I feel slightly, profoundly called out. Because I catch myself participating in it. Or at the very least, I consume it like it's gospel.
We all do. It's designed for us to consume it that way.
Yeah, but it feels like our childhood trauma used to be this thing we kept hidden away, like locked down in the dark, damp basement of the psyche. You didn't talk about it.
Right, it was deeply private.
But now it is fully staged in the sunlit atrium of the personal brand. We aren't just whispering about our wounds behind closed doors anymore. We are curating them.
We are packaging them. Yeah.
Exactly. We are putting our pain in pastel Canva templates, tagging it with, hashtag inner child work, and then measuring our emotional growth by how many double taps we get.
The wound has basically become a watermark for our digital identity, which actually perfectly sets up the mission for our deep dive today.
I am so ready for this.
We are going to apply a modern Freudian lens to this exact phenomenon. We really need to explore why we have collectively transformed our most private, agonizing anguish into social currency.
Because it is currency now.
It absolutely is.
Right.
The goal here is to decode how the act of healing online has mutated into this highly curated aesthetic performance and what that is actually doing to our subconscious.
I promise you, by the time we wrap up this deep dive, you are going to look at your own curated feeds and honestly your own digital coping mechanisms through a completely different and frankly slightly uncomfortable lens.
That's the best kind of lens, though.
Oh, for sure. We are going to peel back the visual reality of what you see on the screen to uncover what these posts are actually achieving psychologically.
Because trauma has become a feature, not a bug, of modern identity. Let's look at the phenomenon of the trauma dump as a deliberate content strategy.
Yeah, you see this everywhere now.
You do. It's like a swipe-through carousel post titled something like 5 signs you were parentified as a child.
Meaning, those kids who essentially had to grow up too fast and take on the emotional or practical roles of their own parents, like managing their mother's moods, raising their siblings, that sort of thing.
Exactly that. And when you look at these posts about being parentified, every single slide is meticulously designed. You've got the millennial pink background, the elegant minimalist typography, maybe a single perfectly placed teardrop emoji.
Right, it's gorgeous.
And the comments immediately flood in. This is me, saving this for my therapist. What was once private, isolating agony now functions as social glue.
It answers that ultimate, terrifying question of digital existence, which is, are you interesting enough to follow?
Exactly. The trauma signals depth. In the same way a designer handbag signals financial status or taste, displaying a childhood wound signals that you have layers. You were complex.
You're mysterious but self-aware.
Right. But the paradox here is glaring. The act of naming the wound is happening under the blinding studio lights of self-presentation. It's not happening in the quiet, contained room of analysis where you might actually unravel it safely.
So it's a spectacle.
Yes. The trauma isn't being worked through. It is simply being worn.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because my immediate, somewhat defensive reaction as someone who lives in the modern world is to ask, wait, isn't this ultimately a good thing?
A lot of people argue that it is.
I mean, we finally have the vocabulary. We are using words like boundaries, triggers, narcissistic parents. Doesn't simply having that language and sharing it mean we are doing the work?
It is a comforting thought, but no. What we are seeing on these feeds isn't introspection. It is cultural literacy.
Cultural literacy.
Yes. Throwing around therapy speak is a very effective way to scream, "I am self-aware," to the world without ever having to actually sit in the terrifying, deafening silence that true self-awareness requires.
But hold on, if you don't even know you have a narcissistic parent, you're just walking around thinking you're crazy, right? Isn't naming the wound the literal first step to healing it?
It's the first step, sure.
Because at least having a roadmap is better than stumbling in the dark.
A roadmap is vital, yes, but only if you use it to actually navigate out of the woods.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What happens online is that people use the roadmap to build a permanent campsite, charge admission, and show everyone else how well they read the map.
That is, wow. Yeah, that hurts a little.
The algorithm rewards vulnerability, but only a very specific kind. It rewards vulnerability that is aesthetically palatable, neatly packaged, and non-disruptive.
Because real pain is disruptive.
Extremely. Think about what actually happens in therapy. It is raw, messy, snot-nosed, unprocessed pain. That doesn't trend.
No one is double tapping actual sobbing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What trends is pain that has been filtered through the lens of self-improvement. We are witnessing a marketplace where authenticity isn't the commodity.
So what is?
The commodity is the performance of having done the work. The dissonance is the entire point. The caption reads, "Healing is not linear, but the photo grid is immaculately, flawlessly curated."
So if posting about our pain in a millennial pink font isn't actually processing the pain, what exactly is my brain doing when I hit share?
That's the real question.
Because I'll be honest, when you put something vulnerable out there, it feels like a release. It feels like relief in the moment.
What you're feeling is the relief of a defense mechanism doing its job. In classical Freudian terms, this is the great deception of our current moment. It's called intellectualization.
Intellectualization, meaning I am trying to think my way out of feeling something.
That is the core of it, yeah. Intellectualization is when we talk about our pain with intense clinical precision, specifically to avoid feeling the raw bodily emotion of it.
Because the feeling is too overwhelming.
Right. We diagnose ourselves to evade the terrifying ambiguity of actual sensation. We retreat into the intellect because the body feels too dangerous.
So using terms like, I have an anxious, preoccupied attachment style, let's define that really quickly. That's the attachment style where you are constantly terrified your partner is going to pull away, you need constant reassurance, and you overthink every text message.
Yes, exactly. And saying to someone, or to the internet, "I have anxious, preoccupied attachment," acts as a shield.
It sounds so clinical.
Because it is. It is vastly safer and much more emotionally distant than looking a partner in the eye and saying, "I am terrified you are going to leave me, and my chest feels like it's caving in."
Oh man, that is so much harder to say.
The clinical diagnosis contains the terror. It puts the messy human fear into a sterile, manageable box. And more importantly for our digital lives, it makes that fear marketable.
What's fascinating here is how we consume that marketing.
Right, because there's this fatal confusion between being seen and being understood.
Meaning the likes and comments.
Yes. When you post that intellectualized diagnosis, you might get hundreds of likes. People commenting, "Relatable."
Or, "I feel so seen."
Exactly. You mistake that immediate echo of validation in the comments section for the slow, quiet internal integration that constitutes actual healing. You are swapping out messy, contradictory psychic pain for tidy, highly shareable substitutes.
That makes an uncomfortable amount of sense. I'm just thinking about modern dating right now. Like, have you noticed how dating app bios don't even look like human introductions anymore?
They've certainly changed tone over the last few years, to put it mildly.
It's wild. You swipe through profiles and they read like intake forms at a psychiatric clinic.
They really do.
You see bios that literally say, "Daughter of a narcissist seeking secure attachment," or "Healing my inner child, please don't ghost."
Yes, I've seen those.
It's like we are trying to skip the entire process of getting to know someone and just handing them our psychological rap sheet up front.
It is the ultimate compression of the therapeutic process. We have outsourced the role of the trained, objective analyst.
To Tinder.
Basically, instead of doing this work in a safe, contained environment, we hand that role to some random stranger holding a phone in a coffee shop line.
Just swiping past our trauma.
We've taken the traditional 50-minute hour on the therapist's couch, which is designed to be slow and carefully paced, and compress it into a 15-second video clip or a dating profile. We are swiping left and right, desperately hoping someone will just validate our diagnostic summary.
But wait, if intellectualizing online doesn't actually heal us, and on some level we consciously know that getting 100 likes doesn't really fix the ache in our chest, why do we keep doing it?
It's a compulsion.
but what drives us to compulsively open the app and post the exact same kind of content again the next day.
This is where Freud's concept of the compulsion to repeat becomes incredibly relevant. The unconscious drive to reenact our early relational wounds doesn't just happen in our romantic relationships anymore.
Where else is it happening?
That compulsion is now operating with algorithmic precision.
You're saying we are reenacting our childhood trauma with a piece of code. How does an algorithm replace a parent?
Think about the psychological defense of projection. We all have an inner critic, right?
Yeah, mine is very loud.
That harsh, withholding voice installed by early caregivers who maybe didn't give us the unconditional love or approval we needed. What we do online is take that internal withholding figure and project it onto our followers and onto the algorithm itself.
So the algorithm becomes the parent.
Yes. Every post becomes a subconscious test. Will they validate me today? Will they see my pain? Or will they punish me with silence? The like button essentially becomes the parental nod of approval we never received as children.
Here's where it gets really interesting and honestly really dark. Because what happens when the trend shifts? We know how fast the internet moves.
It moves on instantly.
What happens when you post your most vulnerable, intellectualized trauma dump and the algorithm just decides not to push it? Like the validation dries up, the audience moves on to a different aesthetic?
The projection collapses. And the original wound, that childhood absence, gapes wider than before.
Because you were ignored.
Because now you aren't just hurting from the past. You are dealing with the fresh, immediate humiliation of having performed your deepest pain for a crowd that simply ignored you.
So the critic comes back.
The inner critic returns and says, see, even your trauma isn't interesting enough to keep them around. This dynamic raises an essential point about our psychic energy, or what psychoanalysts call libido.
And just to clarify for the listener, when Freud talks about libido, people usually assume he just means sex drive, right?
People do assume that, but it's much broader. Libido is the life force. It is the psychic energy that seeks connection, warmth, and discharge.
Okay, so it's reaching out for something.
Exactly. When an infant reaches out for a caregiver and meets absence or coldness, that reaching energy has to go somewhere. It gets rerouted.
And today,
the algorithm has become the perfect, frictionless conduit for that rerouted energy. The infant's cry for the mother's gaze becomes the adult's thirst for the double tap.
But the algorithm is basically an inconsistent caregiver. I mean, it doesn't give you a steady stream of love.
No, it is a masterclass in intermittent reinforcement.
Like a slot machine.
Precisely. If a vending machine gives you a soda every single time you put in $1, you only use it when you were thirsty.
Right.
But a slot machine, you pull the lever and you don't know if you'll get nothing, a little bit, or the jackpot. That unpredictability hooks the dopamine system entirely.
And the algorithm works the exact same way.
It does. It delivers microdoses of libidinal satisfaction, just enough likes, just enough comments to keep you pulling the lever. But it never delivers enough to actually satiate that original primal hunger.
So it's an endless loop.
Exactly. Your psychic energy flows outward toward the screen, but it never completes its circuit inward toward actual integration. You are feeding the wound with attention rather than doing the hard, quiet work of letting it scar over.
We're keeping the wound open on purpose because the attention feels close enough to love. That is incredibly heavy to sit with.
It's a tough realization.
But it makes total sense when you zoom out and look at the massive industry that has sprung up around this. I mean, we can't talk about this without talking about the self-help industrial complex.
We absolutely must look at the industry because this individual psychological trap is highly profitable for a lot of people.
Oh, massively profitable. You literally cannot scroll for 5 minutes without hitting an Instagram therapist selling a 6-figure reparenting course.
Or life coaches offering trauma optimization.
Yes. Or you get targeted ads for these expensive specialized journals with daily prompts like, what is little you need to hear today?
It's relentless.
It feels like this bizarre capitalist fantasy where we're all supposed to become the CEOs of our own psyches. We're sold this idea that we can just fire our inner critic, promote our inner child to the VP of joy, and restructure our entire family system like it's a failing tech startup.
That is a perfect way to put it. It's the language of corporate management colonizing the unconscious.
Like we're just managing assets.
You are treating your mind like an efficiency problem. It sells the illusion that trauma is just a productivity roadblock to be optimized, rather than a profound grief to be mourned.
And treating your trauma like a corporate optimization project creates this intense neurotic pressure. I have totally caught myself doing this.
We all have.
You get this acute anxiety about whether you are performing your trauma correctly. Like, you have to be vulnerable, but not too much.
Curated vulnerability.
Exactly. You have to be real, but photogenic in your realness. There is literally a moment where you can be sitting on your bathroom floor, mid-cry, feeling actual genuine despair, and a part of your brain objectively steps back, frames the shot, and whispers, "Would this make a good reel?"
It's haunting.
The symptom becomes a spectacle before you have even fully felt the emotion.
When you describe that pressure to perform the symptom, we arrive at what psychoanalysts call secondary gain.
Secondary gain. What does that mean in this context?
Secondary gain is the hidden benefit of remaining symptomatic. It's the subconscious advantage a person gets from staying unwell.
Okay.
And this reveals the quiet horror beneath this entire digital landscape, maybe. On the deeply subconscious level, we don't want to heal.
Wait, why wouldn't we want to heal? Everyone says they want to heal.
Because the wound guarantees a response.
Oh.
In a fickle, chaotic digital world where connections are fleeting and people are isolated, your trauma is the one constant.
Yeah.
If you post about having a perfectly normal content day, you might get crickets.
Right, no one interacts.
But if you post about your abandonment wound being triggered, you get hearts, you get solidarity, you get a rush of community. As long as you are publicly working through your trauma, you are safe from being ignored.
You're safe, but you're trapped. Because if you lose the wound, you lose the audience.
You are safe from the terrifying question that waits for you on the other side of recovery, which is, who am I without my wound?
That is a massive question.
If your entire identity, your personal brand, and your digital community are built around your suffering, then actually healing means stepping into a massive void. It means you have to figure out who you are when you aren't defined by what happened to you in the past.
So we just stay in the loop. We feel the ache, we intellectualize it, we post about it, we get validated by strangers, we feel momentarily soothed, the emptiness comes back, and we do it all over again.
It's an addiction to the discharge of being witnessed.
Which brings me to the reality of what actually happens when we put the phone down. If I'm a listener and I'm staring at my screen at 10 p.m. deciding whether to post about my bad day, what happens after I hit share? Let's talk about the 3 a.m. dread.
The moment the performance ends and the screen goes dark.
Right. You post the beautifully designed carousel about your anxiety, you get the immediate flood of notifications, and for about 90 seconds you feel completely held by the internet.
You feel seen.
But then the algorithm moves on, your feed refreshes to something else, and you are just lying in bed in the dark, alone.
The silence returns.
And the unconscious still speaks. It speaks in that 3 a.m. dread that no amount of saved Canva posts can soothe. It speaks in the physical compulsion of pulling down your thumb to refresh an empty notifications tab, hoping for just one more crumb of validation to stave off the quiet.
Because the unconscious cannot be aestheticized.
No matter how hard we try.
You can put a soft pink filter over it, you can add lo-fi beats to it, but the original absence remains untouched. The algorithm can reward your confession, but it has absolutely no capacity to hold your grief.
Because grief takes time.
In grief, the actual messy mourning for the safety or love you didn't get as a child requires the very things social media eradicates. It requires silence, and it requires solitude.
So what does this all mean for us? I mean, we are using these incredibly sophisticated digital tools. We are buying the journals. We're following the online therapists. We are genuinely trying to reparent our inner child.
The intention is usually genuine, yes.
But the tragic irony is that by taking that inner child and placing it on a brightly lit digital stage, forcing it to perform its pain for strangers in exchange for likes, we are actively re-traumatizing it. We are doing the exact opposite of holding it in safe, unconditional silence.
We're reenacting the original abandonment, just with much better lighting and typography. We think we are tending to the wound, when in reality, we're just watering it to watch it grow. We're keeping it alive because we've confused the performance of transformation with the quiet substance of it.
It leaves you with such a haunting question. If you are listening to this right now, I want you to carry this thought with you the next time you open an app and find yourself staring down a Tuesday night scroll.
It's something we all need to sit with.
We have successfully trained our algorithms to perfectly mirror our unresolved childhood dynamics. We've taught them to feed us our own trauma, beautifully packaged. But what happens to our digital worlds when we finally do heal?
That's the scariest part.
Will we have to completely break our carefully curated online identities? Will we have to essentially ghost the algorithm and walk away from the applause just to experience a life without the shadow of our past hovering over our feeds?
It is the ultimate modern choice. We have to decide between being seen by the crowd or being whole in the quiet.